the Dynamic Leaders Podcast, this solo podcast episode. And before we get into today's show, first I want to remind everyone, if you like the show, please take a minute and give us a 5-star rating and review. Doing this helps other dynamic leaders find us, and it helps us find other dynamic leaders. Next week, we will return with our first guest episode of March. It's crazy how time flies, especially in a short month like February. Okay, on to today's topic, where I want to target a new business pivot. It's a small change in focus in some ways, but in others, it's pretty huge. Let's start right at the top. Talent 409 is now officially the Talent 409 Leadership Academy. In shorthand, we will still be known as Talent 409, but the full name change was made to reflect the primary work that we do with this company. It's a name change for clarity more than anything, and by also adding Academy to our business name, it tells people that this is a company in which you can gain an education. That's the focal point for Talent 409. We are a teaching and training company. We guide people in their development. For example, in a one-on-one basis, that will mainly be leadership development. But in bigger team settings, that work will be more cultural development. Regardless, one thing I've learned as a business owner is that clarity is more important than the services you provide. If people don't know who you are or what you do, then they have no reason to seek your services. I'm excited about the name change because it's still very catchy with the Talent 409, but it's also comprehensive enough that it tells people what we are before they actually know anything. It's comprehensive without being complex. So step 1 in the business pivot was a name change. Before I run through the rest, I want to say that these changes have been in the works for quite some time now. This is not something I would do irrationally and without much thought or consideration. I've had more than 2 years of experience with this company, which means I've gained more than 2 years of data and information, and I would say for the past 6 months or so, I had been planting the seeds for a whole-scale change like this. I want to make the distinction not to sell myself as a business or entrepreneurial genius, because I'm neither of those things. But I point this out because if there are other business owners and leaders listening, I want you to know that change can happen and you can still stay true to your values. Change can happen, but it can take 6 months to implement the first leg. Change will happen, and that's okay. I was recently listening to an interview with Conan O'Brien that he did on his podcast, and him and his guest were discussing how people have these assumptions that a television show, for example, is kind of set in stone as to what it is from day one, and that there isn't much variation if you are fortunate enough to continue doing it for more than one season. As most people probably know, Conan used to be a writer on The Simpsons, and he used the show as an example of one that made a significant change after season 1. He described Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer Simpson, and apparently Dan thought Homer's voice and mannerisms should reflect somebody that talked and enunciated slower than the average English-speaking American. If you listen to season 1, you don't even need to see it, because you can hear how different Dan sounds as Homer than at any other point in the series. That distinct voice people know Homer Simpson as now was completely different when The Simpsons first aired. I tell that story of a story that Conan told because it illustrates that for even the most successful brands, such as The Simpsons, they'll go through change from time to time. Don't look at change as a negative. It doesn't necessarily mean you were doing something wrong or that you had a bad idea. What it actually means is you have self-awareness. and that because you are growing, gaining knowledge, and staying curious, that you can implement and make a change when needed. Now, I want to throw in the obvious disclaimer and say that if you are changing at such a rapid pace and without much context behind it, well, then you might be in some trouble and you will probably alienate a lot of folks in the process. Okay, now that I've told a couple stories and gotten this disclaimer out of the way, let's talk about the rest of my business pivot. I've decided that while we still primarily work with high school and collegiate level student athletes, that we are shifting our main focus towards women. This is a pretty substantial change for a few reasons, with the most obvious being that I am a male that is looking to impact a world that is vastly different than my own. This pivot also refines our company focus even further, and instead of trying to help the general student athlete population, we are seeking to guide a more specific niche, and in this case, gender. What else does this pivot mean? It means we are going to focus on empowering women in sports. Whether you are a competing student athlete or you are retired from your playing days and looking to make an impact in the coaching world or in a corporate business environment, we want to help, for example, get more women coaching in baseball. But we also want to help women get into positions of influence at their local tech startups or with their local Fortune 500 branch. And of course, if you are a current student athlete, not only do we want to prepare you with the tools you'll need to succeed in life after the sport of your choice, but we want to empower you to be a guiding influence for your team, program, and school while your playing days are still intact. One of the other major impacts of this business pivot involves this very podcast. If you've been listening along, you've probably already noticed the shift towards having more women on the show. This was the first seed I began planting when I started considering making the complete business change. So this podcast will be a vehicle and a voice for the most influential women out there to tell their stories and to help others navigate through athletics and life. We've already had some super influential and incredible women on this show, but I'm excited to continue to build through those relationships and the networks they provide. Why the change? We've talked in pretty good detail about what the change is, but some of you may be wondering why. It's a valid question, but as I mentioned, it's a process that I have been considering for the better part of the past 6 to 8 months. It started right here on this podcast, where I genuinely found myself having a more enjoyable experience interacting with females. Their stories seemed more dynamic, their passion seemed to be more transparent, and my listening audience seems to resonate more with their stories than with their male counterparts. Now, before we get too far away, I don't want this to turn into a conversation about male versus female. That's not what this is about. In addition to my male influence on this show and with the business, there are still plenty of incredible males out there that will get recognition. But if I can just keep my business hat on for a moment, the data and feedback says women do it better. So we have that, and then there's the fact that I truly believe in the notion of empowering women in sports and beyond. This generation and the next. There are a lot of tangled webs that we can get into when it comes to gender inequality and just diversity in general. But what isn't up for debate is the fact that women still don't have as many opportunities to inspire change or influence as males do. It's changing. It really is. But I'm here today to say that I'm going to be one of those platforms that helps it continue to move forward. Equality doesn't mean 50-50. Equality means that the best person gets playing time regardless of gender, or the best person gets the promotion regardless of the color of their skin. That's equality. Just like we've talked about work-life balance before on this pod, it's not necessarily a 50-50 split. Balance is what you make of your time. If you want a 70-30, then that's your balance. But when it comes to equality, we need to make sure that women have the tools and the confidence in place to get into positions of influence. If it's not apparent in the tone of my voice, I am extremely passionate about this, which means I'm thrilled about this pivot. I've already built some great connections, and there are going to be countless opportunities to make a significant impact. It's exciting from a business standpoint, but it's equally thrilling from the standpoint of what this change means and who the change is for. It's quite possible that as I speak, baby Cernelia is developing into an amazing little girl. And what better way to bring her into this world than to have the most influential male role model in her life, that's me, in case you didn't know, show her that women in sports can have the same profound effect that Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, or any males have had in sports history. And guess what? If baby Cernelia is a little boy, that message is still strong. My boy will grow up with the understanding that men and women can be influential and empowering. Seriously, I cannot stress enough how excited I am for this pivot. And I hope that it's a change that resonates with you. If it is, I'd love to hear about it. Don't hesitate to reach out. You can find my email in the show notes or at our website, which is still talent409.com. Please share this news with anyone you think it can have an impact on. And as we continue our journey to discover our talent altitudes, I hope you will find this work impactful and meaningful just as you have in the past. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. For more about what's happening with the Talent 409 Leadership Academy, you can always visit our site, which again is www.talent409.com. And until next time, take it easy.